Welcome back, folks, to the fourth installment of The College Conservative. My name is Wyatt. I am the College Conservative. So I'm in summer now, which is awesome. However, although I'm not in class, I still have a lot of material from past classes and from past semesters that I can bring up, that I plan on bringing up. But as I also said before, I'd like to get into other topics and things of history, or even things that come up in class that I'd like to dive into more, which I'm going to do today. So today I'm going to talk about, well, it's going to be a lead up to, independent regulatory commissions, because I absolutely despise independent regulatory commissions, and that's not because I'm an anarchist, that's because they're unconstitutional, and I want to really show y'all why they're unconstitutional, starting with today. So this might be maybe a 2 or 3 part series, depending on how deep I want to get into it. Anyway, so let's start with the history. So I have my notes right here. It goes all the way back to the 1624 Statute of Monopolies from England. So what happened was the English Parliament in 1624. It was over a little period of time, was really known as a free market revolution in England. So the Parliament and the people, for that matter, got tired of really the economic privileges that the king would license out or grant or give out to people whom he liked, so to speak, and really who lobbied enough for it. And so this created something that was called a government by patentee. So they coined it a government by patentees, which is kind of like what we can see today, where you pay off you although there's no direct a proof of it, so to speak, in a lot of cases, you give money to a candidate and he'll maybe vote a certain way, this way or that way, depending on who you give it to or how much you give it to them, and whatever else. Anyways, so what they really addressed was a general patent power. What a patent is, and in the older terms, and back in like the 1600s and before then, and even after then, and the founding fathers knew this when they created the Constitution. What a patent is basically a broad. It's an economic privilege given by the government, or given by the crown in England. So it's an economic privilege, meaning if you want to open a business, you have to now appeal to the crown so we can get a license for it. Or if you already have a business, like a grain business, for example, or some sort of coal business, or whatever it may be back in that day. Which I don't know if there were coal businesses then. Anyways, so what would happen is they would apply to the crown, or even if you already had a business, basically they were given monopolies of that certain business, which obviously that just kind of creates this, as Marx would say, a bourgeois class between just the buddies of the crown and the crown itself. So now obviously the government and the crown are receiving this money from their buddies, and their buddies don't have any competition, so everyone has to go to them. So you can price gouge, and there's no competition, there's less jobs, and all that stuff that happens to an expensive government into even a corporatist government, so to speak. What else do I have here? So let me go further into my notes. Okay, excuse me, I want to address this too. So Madison as well. Madison had a huge deal, had a huge part of all this. He was on something that was called the Committee of 11. Now, what the Committee of 11 did was they helped edit the Constitution and clauses of the Constitution and this and that. And so what happened was, now when it comes to the American Revolution, crafting the American Revolution, there are obviously a lot of debates between corporations and monopolies, and obviously the Founding Fathers wanted competition, and they wanted laissez-faire economics, and liberty and freedom and all that stuff, and they realized that it came best in capitalist and principles and Adam Smith, drive principles. Anyways, so what they did was they wrote things very carefully. So, for example, a lot of people like to take promote the general welfare clause out of the preamble, and they like to abuse that and say, well, look it, now the government can act any way they want in any situation because they are promoting the general welfare for the public good, which is just absolute crap. Madison actually even writes about this in Federalist Papers. I think I put it down here. He actually speaks about this in 41 through 43, stating in this preamble that the welfare clause is not at all any sort of power grant. In fact, Justice Story was a nationalist, which means that he wanted a bigger central government. He actually spoke about this and spoke about the general patent powers and what the patent powers actually really meant back in the day, which was economic privileges, as I said. And so how it wasn't in the preamble, this promote the general welfare was not at all any sort of writ of power towards the federal government. In fact, it was more of, if you really read the preamble, the flow of it: ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. They're all commas. They're all commas. If there were to be now a semicolon in between, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and then semicolon again. If you would have had a semicolon, then it would have been a delegation of power towards the federal government, and it wasn't. It was just saying, generally speaking, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, which is just the general goodness of the people. That was not saying the government now has the authority to do whatever the hell it thinks it should do to provide for the common goodness, because that just creates tyranny, of course. I already spoke about the Committee of 11 and the semicolon. If you obviously you have to know punctuation for that and what else, grammar. So the patent clause. I want to read the patent clause off real quick. The patent clause states. Excuse me. I thought I had this up and I didn't. Okay, the patent clause, as it has been coined, it's not actually called the patent clause. Actually, patent is not anywhere in our Constitution, and that's for a reason. The patent is not anywhere in our Constitution because the Founding Fathers knew, and they went off of English law. The Founding Fathers knew that patent meant economic privileges and broad economic privileges, and so they did not want to at all put that language in the Constitution, because they knew that people later in the days, they've already done it now, but they knew they would even go at a lot quicker pace. They would try to now justify government intervention and use the welfare language and use the Commerce Clause language, which has been way manipulated to justify government expansion, government intervention into the market in an unconstitutional fashion. So that's the reason why they didn't put the patent in there, because they understood what the patent meant at the time. Now we know what patent means at the time today, which is to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective rising discoveries. Now you're going to see in later videos why this is all going to connect to independent regulatory commissions and really the how the government is overstepping its powers via the 10th Amendment and other clauses such as the Commerce Clause and the Patent Clause, and see how independent regulatory commissions are kind of the manifestation of abusing these powers and manipulating these powers and taking these out of context and taking clauses out of context and words out of context in the Constitution, and just a general disregard for history in general. Anyways, so what Madison actually speaks of, and he says this, is that basically the Patent Clause, it lists specific powers given to the government. Specific powers given to the government. And he later says, in, I believe it was Federalist 41, he says, it would be very contradictory of us if we were to list these specific powers, but then make a general power statement in the preamble with the welfare clause. He says that would be a direct contradiction. No, we put it in here for a reason, and we didn't put the word patent for a reason. We didn't put the word patent in here for a reason because of what patent meant back in the day. And now because of this clause and because of 1624 statute of monopolies, the word patent really we know of to be more copyright and intellectual property and all that good stuff. Anyways, what Madison also speaks of, Madison also gives 6. I will leave y'all after just giving you this real quick. Madison gives really 6 points, so to speak, of what state power actually should be, or excuse me, what the federal government, what their job is. And in 41 he says this. It's 1, security against foreign danger, regulation of intercourse with foreign nations, maintenance of the harmony and proper intercourse among the states, which would be the Commerce Clause, certain miscellaneous objects of general utility, restraints of the states from certain injurious acts, we can get to that as well, which also can correlate and connect with the Commerce Clause, and then provisions for giving due efficacy to all of these powers, which is more of a general thing of saying, kind of following all the rules and following the Constitution so that everything else can work efficaciously. Anyways, so that is it for now. I can dive into these 6 later and have a little reminder. My next video, I also want to jump in my next video, get more into the Commerce Clause and talk about this. And it's all going to be built up to independent regulatory commissions and how they're just absolute crap and how they're unconstitutional. But first and foremost, I want to start out with this, with the statute of monopolies and with the welfare language, which a lot of people confuse with it being a broad power delegation towards the federal government, which is not in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the general patent powers, and using the definition of patent that it was back in the day, the general patent powers actually belong to the states. And even then the states can and have, I believe, in recent history, overstepped those boundaries. We'll get into that next time, and we'll get into other clauses of the Constitution that help to provide this point more and help to show you more to the final point of independent regulatory commissions not only being crap, but being unconstitutional, and how they should be left to the states. And then what the federal government's job would be when it comes to certain universal goods, so to speak, such as, say, clean air or even possibly clean water or pollution or something like that. Because there is a spot for them, there's a room for them, but nowadays, and especially since the EPA was instituted, it's just gone to crap, and it's totally stepped upon our rights and the rights of the states, and has absolutely tarnished the Constitution, which is no surprise, of course. Anyways, thank you so much, folks, for watching. I will post another one of these videos soon, in the continuation of this one. I hope to see you all soon. My name is Wyatt, and I am the College Conservative.